Have you ever wondered what it's like to transition from a large architecture firm to running your own small practice? Or how your approach to business may need to change or adapt over time? I'm joined by architect Joe Wright, who is lifting the lid on his changing approach to business, as well as sharing stories from over a decade as an architecture practice owner in this episode of Architecture Business Club, the weekly podcast for small firm founders who want to build their dream business in architecture and enjoy more freedom, flexibility and fulfillment in what they do. I'm John Clayton, your host. I know that building an architecture business can feel hard, especially if you're a sole practitioner. The good news is you don't need to do it alone. In 2024, we launched our membership community to a small group of founding members, including architects, architectural technologists and interior designers. We meet online and occasionally in person to support each other in building our businesses and to have some fun along the way. We recently opened the doors to a limited number of new members. If you'd like to join this supportive group of like-minded professionals, now's your chance. Just go to architecturebusinessclub.com/waitlist or click the link in the show notes and enter your details so we can let you know how to join this incredible group. And if you have any questions, just email John, that's Jon, at architecturebusinessclub.com. Now, let's discuss Joe's changing approach to business. Joe Wright is a chartered architect who creates bespoke homes in London and West Sussex. His focus is on client collaboration and sustainable design. Joe has worked on around 10 projects per year for over a decade, from design through to construction, helping turn his clients' houses into fabulous homes. During that time, he's also moved from Tottenham to the seaside town of Worthing in West Sussex and overseen building work on 3 projects on his own home. Aside from spending time with his architect wife, 2 sons and their mad cocker spaniel, Joe loves mountain biking, Arsenal Football Club travel, and is a member of a local gospel choir. Joe, welcome to Architecture Business Club.
Hi, John. Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Joe, I think a great place to start. I would love to know a bit more about the local gospel choir. You're an enthusiastic member of the local choir. Could you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, I absolutely love it. It's one of the kind of like highlights of my weekly therapy session. So it's a choir called Spring into Soul. It's run by a very enthusiastic and a larger-than-life character called Siggy. And yeah, we sing mostly gospel. There's a few bits of other bits and pieces. We do a session once a week. There's 2 terms a year. And after the end of that, we do a concert. So we perform probably mostly to friends and family, but we have about 250 people in the audience. And then we do what Siggy calls outside broadcasts around and about. We performed on the beach in Worthing, where I live, with a local samba band, at various different things, at weddings, at a funeral, which was emotional but incredible as well. And yeah, I absolutely love it. I've always kind of enjoyed singing, but never, really only in the shower, never done anything with it. And then while I was still in London, I joined a beginners pop choir, which was brilliant. I loved the people there. That stopped during COVID, and then we moved. And yeah, I just looked locally for a choir, joined a few singing groups, found this one. The people were amazing. Siggy is amazing. And it's just, you for an hour or so every week, you just lose yourself in what you're doing. You have to be in the zone, and it's incredible in so many ways. And like, as a community of people, it's also just has been brilliant. So yeah, love it.
Oh, that sounds absolutely incredible. Yeah, I imagine it's something that if you've not done it before, it might feel a little bit scary maybe to give it a try for the first time.
Even having been in a choir, in this new gospel choir, it took me a little while to get into it. And now I, belt out the tunes with the best of them.
So Joe, we are going to talk about your approach to business and how that has changed over the years. I think a nice place to begin would be if you could just tell us a little bit about what you do in your practice.
Yeah, so we predominantly focus on residential architecture, and our focus really is on homes. And whether that is extending or refurbishing or new build homes, we really focus on the clients and making something which is really personal and bespoke to them. So really listening hard to what they want, and then try and identify underneath that, what do they need? Sometimes challenging their brief a little bit. And then we also work with a few developer clients who, when they approach us, they can really understand the value in building something that's just really a home. It's not just a transaction. It's not just a building, but they by putting effort and energy into creating a real home that's going to be a place where people want to live out their lives, perhaps, or an important part of it, and will invest a little bit more than, they're not just building a noddy box and then just selling it on. It's not just a cake presser, cookie presser, and that's kind of important to us. So we wouldn't necessarily take on projects that we can see that are just about the absolute bottom line, just, bang them out. And I guess back to our main focus, which is homeowner clients or people that are looking to buy a house. We look to just work very closely with them, develop a relationship that, well, a lot of our clients are actually, they've become friends. It's a very intense process designing a home, I think. So they've become friends just naturally because you spend so much time with them, you understand them. I like to think as well that they come to me and us because they can sense that there's something there that's going to work. And very often, we stay in contact anyway with clients long after the build because we're interested in how it's gone. But very often we forget to ask about the house. It's kind of like, how's life, because that's one of the big kind of things that I enjoy. It's really helping the people with their home and seeing them happy, once they've moved in, hopefully during the process as well. But once they've moved in, it really becomes their home and not just a kind of a bland background.
Yeah, I think that's so lovely that you've managed to build such a good connection with those clients. And you said that it becomes more like a friendship, and that's amazing that happens throughout the course of working with your clients. If we could rewind a little bit, right back to the beginning, when did you decide that you wanted to be an architect in the first place?
So I was really into Lego as a child. That was one of my kind of real enjoyments and escapes as a child. But I didn't really think about much of the kind of that skill or interest, I guess, as a future job. I really wanted to be a pilot. I loved the idea of flying, being up in the air, and was really into kind of the idea of birds of prey. And then I had issues with my ears. So I realized that actually I probably couldn't do that as a job. And then when I was about 13 or 14, I needed to do a week's work experience through school. I was interested in coarse fishing at the time. And so I tried to get a job or work experience with the National Rivers Authority or the Environment Agency as it is now. I couldn't get a job. They didn't have a placement. A friend of mine managed to get a week's work in an architect's office. And I think that just opened my mind to the idea of architecture as a job. I'd not really thought about it before. I then applied to a local firm, managed to get a placement. I had a great week there. They gave me actually a really boring task of planning out and I wouldn't even say designing a car park for a local shopping centre. Really boring. But it did give me the opportunity to listen to what was going on in the office and the buzz and just listening to conversations. I remember distinctly there was one phone call came in and it was about a project that was about to go for planning for a house. And the client rang and said, I want to add in a swimming pool. And the architect put down the phone and there was a bit of a laugh in the office as shock. How do we deal with this? But then they got down, and a few of them, I could just hear them kind of in a huddle working out, okay, so what do we do there? What would be the best position for it? How would it work? How could we work it in into the planning application, but also in terms of reality? And I just almost saw like the problem solving process in real time, and that really excited me actually. And as I was there was different things going on. I wouldn't say it wasn't a particularly designery office, but it still kind of really really got my interest up. So then after that week, I started thinking about architecture as a job. I think I went to see a careers advisor then and asked, well, what subjects would I do if I was to do architecture? My mum was brilliant. She bought me a book on Frank Lloyd Wright. I didn't really know much about architects or architecture. And I share my surname almost with Frank Lloyd Wright.
Almost.
And obviously, he has some absolute iconic designs. And I think I've kind of come round full circle, really. But the idea of the home and his different kind of ways of thinking about home. So anyway, that got me kind of sucked in and in the line. And then I realised that all the GCSEs that I would need to do were things that I was good at and enjoyed. So I really liked maths and science and art. And then I chose my A-levels on that basis as well, and having researched a little bit more. And then I chose to go to the University of Nottingham, to the architecture course there. I think probably of the people there on those first few days, I knew the least about what I was getting into. But after the first year, I was absolutely hooked. The course really embedded a passion for design into me, as well as the kind of the bits that I was expecting, the problem solving stuff. That's I'd already enjoyed that. So yeah, and then the following years, I think it's as you know with design, it's not easy. They're not easy courses. There's a lot to cover. I progressed through from that point, and I kind of initially thought 7 years being a student would be absolute bliss, and I found out quite quickly it's a lot of hard work. But yeah, I progressed through and qualified, and here I am.
That's fantastic. I think what's really interesting, the story that you shared about that work experience, that thank goodness that client decided to have a swimming pool on that property, because had you not seen that problem solving taking place, that demonstration of that, you might have come away from that week thinking, is this what this is all about? Just drawing car parks? I mean, talk about a dull task to give you to work on. I'm trying to think what would be worse than that, or less interesting. Maybe some sanitary schedules.
Yeah, it was probably a bit of a sliding doors moment, in a way. I could have come away from that just thinking, yeah, that's dull. I don't know what I'd be. I don't know what maybe I would have found my way into architecture in some way anyway.
Yeah, it could have been. There could have been another route into it. After that, you could have gone on to just stay working for another practice, but you set up your own practice. I'm interested to know what led you to set up your own practice.
So I think early on, when I was looking to apply for university, and as I say, it's probably a little bit kind of green. I didn't know that much about the industry, but I thought that I would like to set up on my own. I'd like to do my own things. I didn't really know what that meant, certainly on the business side. But as I've been working, probably for university, I didn't really think about it that much. I was just concentrating on, doing the design work and kind of getting through each kind of hoop in each year. But then as I was working, I joined, now a quite large architecture company based in London, among other places, Alford Hall, Monaghan Morris, or IHMM. And I joined straight after my part 2. I also did my part 3 while I was working there. And they were brilliant with me. Actually, I kind of was lucky to land into a project in my first week where the director involved wanting to do design, but not much more. So I ended up really essentially being the project architect on a tower, a glass tower block, just south of Blackfriars Bridge in Southwark. And then that meant that I was kind of heavily involved in all the meetings, and the actual kind of partners of the company knew me by name quite quickly. So although the chap was doing the kind of main design ideas, I was kind of dealing with a lot of the other things. And as I progressed through the practice, I just felt that so they were great. They did great stuff, mix of commercial, schools, everything that I kind of enjoyed about architecture. They were doing really nice design, really well thought out. They're amazing at marketing, so they always had loads of work. But the more meetings I attended with chaps in suits who weren't the end users, weren't going to be the end users. My kind of part of the office was more commercially focused. The less engaged I got. I think some people really enjoyed that, but I didn't. And then over time, I just started to get an urge to work on smaller stuff for end user clients, and to really just almost dial right back to the beginning. And I could have joined a small practice and got experience. I remember telling Simon Alford about it, so one of the kind of partners in the firm, and he said, "I think you're ready to go now, Joe. Just go for it. Just jump, because you've got all the skills. A lot of the stuff that we do, you're kind of learning as you go anyway. You've learned how to take on information and how to research and then to use that." So he said, just go for it. So I did 6 months traveling with my wife before I set up. Incidentally, I'd met her at AHMM on some of the social things. I just went from there.
Wow. So having set things up, I'm interested, like having started your own business then, having started your own practice, particularly in those early years, I mean, how did you find new clients? How did you get work after you started?
So when I set up, we just got back from traveling. We spent quite a lot more money than we were anticipating.
That happens.
Which happens. I had we had a kind of a fund, and I had a fund kind of ready to set up with, and that essentially all went. So I contracted for a little while, and this would have been around 2010, 2011. So I didn't have any clients. I'd not been working in the background, taking on stuff. I didn't feel as though I had the capacity to work a full-time job and do that on top. I'd done a couple of kind of tiny projects for friends, but really I had no momentum. So it was an absolute standing start. But as I kind of went, I finished my contracting. I had a couple of weeks where I was thinking about, well, how do I get clients? And I tried to think of people that might be able to help me. I contacted a friend from my part 3 who'd set up a practice a few years before with her husband, and they were really flying, really, really going really well. And I thought initially that maybe I could help them out a little bit part-time. And actually they said, well, actually, we've got a couple of projects that we don't really want to do. They're a bit small for us now. Would you be interested? So I said, yeah, of course. So they sent me on the contact details, spoke to the clients, and I think 1 or 2 of those projects turned into an actual project for us in the office. And I think we did pretty well on them. So they told their friends. They brought in other projects then. I also did a ring around local builders. This is in North London. And some of them had been looking for architects to help them out. So little bits and pieces then kind of came in through that. And then actually also I went for a drink with one of the directors at HMM. Said there's not really enough work here to pay the bills. And they took me on freelancing 2 or 3 days a week. I did the structural coordination on a project, their University of Amsterdam project. And then in my other days, I could then just focus on the business, doing the projects that I had in, and then just kind of building. And I kind of felt that in having that time and having those days, I was then putting the word out there more. I was just ringing round, and by kind of being there and kind of having to shout about it because I didn't have much on, that kind of brought the work in.
I love that you were proactive about that you were making those phone calls, and that you looked to your existing network of connections as well. You looked at, well, your previous employer and the other practices that you'd had dealings with, that there was potential opportunities there. You could contact them and see if they needed help, if they were busy and had more work than they needed. So that's a really good idea if you need to get some more work, for sure. I mean, that definitely is a challenge for a lot of small businesses, finding clients. I mean, running a business generally isn't easy. I'd be interested to know what you've personally found most difficult in running a business over the years. Remember, don't forget to join the waitlist for our membership community, where you can meet other business owners who want the same thing as you. A thriving business that gives you more freedom, flexibility and fulfillment. Just go to architecturebusinessclub.com/waitlist or click the link in the show notes and enter your details so you don't miss out on this amazing opportunity to improve your business and your life. And if you're enjoying the show, then please leave a 5-star review or rating wherever you listen to podcasts. Now back to the show.
So I think there's probably 2 things for me. So money, definitely, and the flow of money. And then I think the difficult clients, I would say, were the 2 biggest. So in terms of money, as I say, we didn't have much on. I didn't have much on in the early days. It was just me. I wasn't really sure what I should charge for the work that I was doing. And when I got a project in, I was spending way more time on the project than the fees would allow. If I wanted to have anything more than a minimum wage, say. So I was still able to pay my share of the bills, just about, but wasn't really bringing anything in for, that we could put towards anything else, saving or, holidays or anything like that. I kind of felt guilty almost about charging. So when I was working, when I was at HMM under a practice, they were giving me the work to do, and then they were charging for it, and they were also very good at explaining what their value was. I didn't feel that. I didn't know how to do that as well, and it's not really me. So even though the output I think was really good, and the feedback I was getting from clients was really, really positive, the fees were low, and it took me quite a long time to have the confidence to ask for a bit more put more in a fee proposal. I think probably as well, I started taking people on, and I realised I had to pay them a decent wage, and then still have something left over to pay me. So I think it was the realities. Essentially, I was forced to put up the fees. I think possibly the very, very early days, I was still learning a lot about the kind of small projects. So there was a little bit of the clients kind of took a bit of a leap of faith. So I think that was probably fair. But as time went on, just balancing the books, and we went up at one point to about 5 people, and trying to bring in enough work, keep to the fees within the time budgets that we'd set, get the quality of the work right, that was really difficult. And actually, I found that what I was able to pay myself really went down the bigger we got. Basically because I wasn't really managing the team, I would say, and the fees. But also, I was taking on work that I didn't necessarily want to do just to keep the guys working. So that was very challenging, I would say, and still is. I'd say we're a little bit slow at the moment. We're kind of fine. Again, we're kind of paying the bills. We're doing okay, but we have capacity to do a lot more. And perhaps we'll touch on that later. The other one was difficult clients. And I think it's probably another factor of confidence, related to the guilt of charging. Early on, I felt really obliged to take on any project I could get. And I ended up working for a couple of really unpleasant people, separate projects, who kind of took advantage, I think, of my nice boy character. And I spent a huge amount of time chasing my tail, trying to produce stuff, keep their projects moving, but also satisfy them to keep them happy. And I'm not really sure, actually, ultimately they could ever have been satisfied. And then because I wasn't managing those clients appropriately, it knocked onto my other projects. So it really affected my output on those and the quality of experience, not necessarily the output, because I worked really hard to kind of keep up the output, but in terms of the communication with the clients and their experience, that slipped. And that was, as I said at the start, that's one of the things that I really hold as important, as the holy grail. With my time and focus being diverted away from those projects, the more pleasant clients, the one I wanted more of, I kind of lost out, and I'd say that the horrible clients who I didn't want more of weren't going to be happy anyway. So I kind of shot myself in the foot in that respect. I think I've learned over time to look out for potential clients like that who are going to be difficult. And if it's a couple, try and meet both of them before even sending a fee proposal. I think possibly as well that because I'm more confident, you lay the lines down quite early. So perhaps there's less difficult clients because I'm kind of educating them. They kind of realise that they can't overstep. But definitely there are inquiries that come in, and I just get a sense, or it's almost like a gut feeling, I just don't want to work with them. We could be tied to for any client. The difficult one tied to with the pleasant clients. It's I love doing it. It's not a tie, but it could be 1 or 2 years that you're working really intensively with them. If you don't like them, if they take away from you as a person, it's not a good thing. It's not healthy. So I really try and spot them early on and just not get involved.
Yeah, I can really relate to those challenges, Joe. And they are interlinked because you mentioned that if you've got insufficient or inconsistent cash flow, that when an inquiry comes in, particularly if you've got team members that you're working with that you need to keep busy, you're under pressure to then say yes to clients that you really don't want to work with, even though your gut is telling you. And our gut is often a really good indicator, isn't it? I've found that my prior experience, I've had bad clients too. And I can look back and say, honestly, that in each of those instances, my gut had already told me not to work with that client. There was clear signs, indicators, alarm bells that were already ringing. But because it was at a point when I didn't have enough clients at the time, that I needed more work, I said yes, and then regretted it.
It's really difficult, isn't it? When it happens and you're in it and you're kind of signed up, you've got to finish the project. I guess at certain points you could say sorry and jump off, but I don't think it reflects great to kind of jump off partway through having charged some fees and invoiced. But it's a real drain. A couple of times it's, it affects your other work. It also affects your mental health, I think. and what I've experienced. Although you develop over time more resilience, having dealt with these people, I still wouldn't want to deal with the first couple of kind of bad clients I had 11, 12 years ago. I wouldn't want to deal with them now. It would be just as draining, I'm sure.
I think that it ties into something else you touched upon earlier, where there's a difference between if you're working somewhere and you're doing part of the work and then somebody else is dealing with the billing or the kind of onboarding, versus being a solopreneur or sole practitioner or a micro-sized practice where you are leading things and you're responsible for all of that and actually physically working on the design. Because naturally, like, most creatives tend to be emotionally connected to the work that they do. And as a consequence, when we do get pushback or client issues that we're dealing with, that we can take it really personally, and absolutely, like, it totally affects your mental health. Like, I had an instance a number of years ago with a client that my gut told me not to work with. I did anyway at the time. And we got to a point when I just decided we couldn't work together anymore. They weren't fully open about what they wanted. My normal process that's developed is very collaborative to avoid this type of situation. This is one of the reasons why it's done that way. And I ignored my gut. Classic creative issues there. Fast forwarding a bit, Joe, I'm interested to know what business development and marketing activities that you've been doing more recently. Could you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I would say in my mind recently would kind of cover the next few years, and things have changed kind of quite a lot. I didn't do any marketing for most of the time that we'd been set up, apart from ringing around, as I say, with builders and friends who had practices. I had a website, and I remember just every time I looked at the website being really underwhelmed and actually disappointed, because in my mind, we were about people and clients and their homes. And I'd taken some photos and had a professional photographer take some photos of some of our completed projects. They're really lovely projects. But there were no people in them. And actually the home element, the bit that showed it was lived in, was kind of tidied away a little bit. And I'm interested in architecture, I'm interested in design, but it's where that accommodates home, and that's really important to me. So a few years ago I started to focus on the website a bit more. So I guess it's kind of giving the message. What is the message I'm trying to put over? And the original one, the website, it just didn't really show what we did properly. And I worked with a friend, James West of the West Creative, who helped me to develop those ideas, I guess, and to really kind of nail down what it is that I did and wanted to do, and how I kind of put myself, when I'm chatting to clients, how I put myself out there. And he helped me produce a series of interviews with clients. So he brought in a journalist, he arranged it all, some photographers who took photos of the clients. So this was clients whose projects had completed, say, 2 or 3 years beforehand. And we sat down with them. It was a little bit like this. We just had a bit of a chat. So I was chatting with them, and then the journalist interviewed them. And it was a little bit to understand the process of working with me, but it was more, what's it like working with an architect? Why did you want to have a project done on your home, worked on your home, and how did you find it? What went well? What didn't? And that actually really brought out loads of things, loads of ideas, and things that in my mind I felt that we were doing, but it wasn't kind of shown someone, or somewhere, it wasn't validated. So those interviews were written up by James, the journalist, and there was a graphic designer as well. And then they set up a little book, Joe Architect's book, of the interviews, and then photos of me and clients and some of the clients, and them just having been interviewed, they were just comfortable in their homes and enjoying it and explaining why they were enjoying it. So that then sat there essentially for a little while. That was my marketing. And then things started to slow down, I think, over the last couple of years, coinciding with the rise in interest rates and the squeeze on cost of living, etc. I really realised that I needed to get the word out there more. I'd moved down from North London down to Worthing and West Sussex. Most of our work is still in London, or lots of it is still in London. Currently, I'm pushing to get more work down in Worthing and West Sussex, but I need to put the word out there. So I started doing networking, which I'd never done before. It terrified me, and I thought it'd be really awkward, and it would just be lots of people kind of back into the kind of seats round the table, idea of just people selling stuff to each other. But I started doing it through the local Chamber of Commerce, and I've met some really lovely people, really enjoyed it, and kind of just developed, I guess, professional relationships, friendships. I only started in the last 6 months or so. I wouldn't say it's necessarily generated any direct work, but it feels as though something's happening through that. And then I've done a little a signboard on one of our projects locally, beachfront, 5 new build houses on the beachfront. I'm talking to an estate agent about like a love it or list it type idea. So they might introduce us to potential buyers, and then we might do the same with our clients. They would help with valuations and projections in terms of value, and then we would help with ideas, and maybe that's a bit of a way in, even if it just raises profile. I think it'd be helpful. Perhaps do a little article in the local paper. And then the even more than networking, the other thing I've been doing and that I thought I'd always hate was a little bit of social media. So I've started to dip my toe into LinkedIn. I've done 2 posts so far, so very pleased with myself, and planning to do more and getting used to a post as not being this kind of absolutely polished thing that you need to work on for 6 months, that you could just kind of put something out there. So all of that is, I think, raising profile. I've also been to some training workshops for marketing, and joined the ABC Architecture Business Club service, which obviously you run, John, and is peer-to-peer, I guess, mentoring and coaching. That's been brilliant. And as a space to sit back from the business, the day-to-day of the business, and being kind of right up to the work is right in your face. You're stepping back a little bit and thinking about, well, where do I actually want to go with this? What do I do? I found that brilliant, as well as the other marketing training things I've done, and even at CPDs where you sit back. It's difficult when you're working on your own, essentially. You know, I have a lady who's been working with me for, I think, probably about 10 years now, is absolutely brilliant. And really kind of like gets through loads of work. But that kind of level where you're bouncing ideas off at the business level, I haven't had. So to be able to do that, either to step back and just think in my own head, or to bounce off ideas with people or hear how they work, has been really brilliant. And it just gives you a bit of sometimes a bit of accountability. And it's very easy to procrastinate on an idea and not do anything for a long time. So sometimes you just need to kick up the bum and just get on with it.
Oh, I love that, Joe. Thanks so much for the plug. I'll send the £100 over later.
You're welcome.
I love that the things that you've shared it's all very proactive, which I love, that you're not just the classic, which you mentioned that you had done in the past, which was the build it and they will come. So it's we've got a website, we've got a little bit of a portfolio on there. Our work speaks for itself. Like, we don't need to do anything else. Like, that's enough. But it's not enough. Like, sometimes you can have seasons when there can be enough from word of mouth and referrals. But then if you want to have a consistent pipeline of sales inquiries coming in, it's quite funny, isn't it, that we want to have consistent sales and work, but we're not actually doing consistent activities to bring those inquiries in and to deliver those results. So I love the fact that you've been really proactive with everything, and you've been leaning into some things that were previously outside of your comfort zone, like going to the networking events. I mean, podcast interviews, this is your first ever podcast interview, and you've been amazing. You've been fantastic. So that's something else that you could do more of in the future. So really excited to see how your business develops over the coming years. Joe, I'd like to know, what's one thing you wish you'd started doing 5 years earlier?
I think that's really easy. And I think it's the networking. Because I was scared of doing it. I thought it was going to be really awkward. I'm not the most outgoing of people. Once I start chatting, if I'm comfortable with someone, I can then kind of go. But being in a new situation with people I don't know, I find really, really scary. But having done it a couple of times, it's just, it can be fun. There are people around you who want to chat. There might be a group of people chatting they probably only met that day, but from the outside you think, that it's a clique, they're all mates. But I started to just push myself and just say, oh, hello, how you doing? What's your name? What do you get up to? And then you might just talk about your business very briefly, but then you just talk about other things like the kids, the dog, the football club I love. Get some size and some grins. I think the people to people thing, it's what I've always loved in terms of working with the clients. And I think that it was something that lay completely untapped for me. I've enjoyed it, and I could just see that even if I never meet a client directly, just by meeting people who just have their ear to the ground. And what I often do is just show them my brochure. If they're interested in what I do, it's very difficult to kind of explain or talk about a design or, what does a happy client look like? But just show them my brochure and just, this is kind of how we work. And really quickly they get an idea. And then hopefully that just stays with them. And then maybe if one of their mates wants to do an extension or even a new build, that they'll think of me, and it just broadens out the potential net, if you like. I guess that's networking, isn't it? That net that you've cast out of people that can almost kind of advocate for you, be it like a informal sales force, if you like. So yeah, it's definitely networking, and it's been good. And I'm only been doing it 6 months or so. I'm going to keep going with it because it's been brilliant.
Yeah, I've had a similar experience that I've had a number of years where I didn't do really any networking. And not that long ago, I started going to some local networking events, and I've really enjoyed it too. And that's those same feelings of that fear of like walking into a room of like 30 or 40 people and feeling like you're the new person there, and like, where do you even start? Oh, everyone else knows each other. But I've very quickly found that that's just not the case, that there's a lot of other people there that also feel exactly the same way. That classic, you walk in and you get talking to somebody and it's like, oh, is it your first time here? Yeah, it's my first time too. Oh, I don't normally like going to these sorts of things, but I thought I'd give it a try. Oh, that's the same for me. And you find there's a lot of commonality there with other people. We're all the same. There's all sorts of other people that are probably feeling exactly the same way that you felt about networking before you decided going, and then realise that it's not so bad after all. And as you say, it can actually be quite fun.
It can.
Yeah.
Even what I found is even the old hands, if you say, oh, this is my first time, not really sure, how this works, they tend to be really, really nice and just say, well, it works exactly what you've just done. You walk up to us and you say hello, and something to just break the ice, like not really sure what I'm doing, because then you just start chatting. So that's what I found. I've only done a handful of events, I guess, but I just feel a lot more comfortable with kind of walking up to people and saying hello.
Oh, that's really good. I can't remember the episode number, but we did do a podcast episode about networking. So if anyone else is listening thinking, I'd like to get more into networking, understand some of the benefits and how to go about it, then go back and check out that podcast episode. Joe, it's probably time for us to start to wrap things up now. So I was just wondering, what was the main thing that you'd like everyone to take away from this conversation?
I think because it's happened a number of times in both my career and then with the business, I think it's really, it's not being scared to, or overcoming the fear of taking the leap. And it's so easy to wait, to procrastinate and research and think about it. So whether that's going into architecture, say, or starting a practice, or going into networking, I think, we tend to, if you're a particular type of person like me, you hesitate and think about it and, or what if it goes wrong? And I think you probably just need to go ahead and jump, and you kind of deal with and manage and learn as you go along. You deal with the things that come up. But if you don't take that first step, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for sharing that, Joe. Was there anything else that you wanted to share that we haven't already covered?
No, I don't think so. I think we've covered a fair amount of ground.
We've covered quite a lot, haven't we? Okay, so we both love to travel and to discover new places, and I'd like it if you could tell me about one of your favourite places and what you love about it.
This is really difficult because I've been to quite a few places. I've been off travelling for long periods twice, Southeast Asia and Australia, and then a separate trip with my wife to India and South America. I'd say if I was to open it up to the whole world, probably Bolivia, around Salar de Uyuni, the salt flats. But actually, probably my favourite, that go-to place in my mind, if someone talks about, well, where would you go if you could go anywhere right now? It'd be Ireland. It'd be Southwest Cork, which is where my mum's family are from. We used to go there a lot when I was a child. My grandparents had a bungalow in Skull, which is kind of close to the very southwest of the county, and it's so beautiful. It can be quite bleak. It's so beautiful. The people are just incredibly friendly. They've got a very singy accent, which is just really nice to be around, and many happy childhood memories. And then we go back. We went back last year as a family. Whenever I go back, I just get that kind of feeling again of being at home and being kind of welcome. And yeah, it's just so beautiful. It's a place that I think just it recharges me. So yeah, I love it.
Oh, fantastic. And they also do an amazing pint of Guinness over there.
They do.
If you haven't been to Ireland, you have to go and you have to try the Guinness while you're there.
Well, that's Murphy's in Cork.
Oh, Murphy's down in Cork. Yes, yeah. Oh, yeah. I haven't seen that much over in England for a while, but yeah, I'll bear that in mind the next time I'm back over there. Joe, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show. If people would like to connect with you online, what's the best way for them to do that?
I think you should use my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
I'm using that more and more. It's under Joe Wright Architects, although it's me. So yeah, contact me on that, and then I'll be learning how to use it as we go, and I'll ping you back and perhaps make some more posts as well.
Excellent. And what about your website, Joe?
So it's joewrightarchitects.co.uk.
Perfect. Thanks again, Joe.
Thank you, John. It's been a real pleasure. I've really enjoyed myself.
Next time, I'm joined by Ray Brown to learn how you can dramatically improve your results as an architecture practice owner. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Architecture Business Club. If you liked this episode, think other people might enjoy it, or just want to show your support for the show, then please leave a glowing 5-star review or rating wherever you listen to podcasts. It would mean so much to me and makes it easier for new listeners to discover the show. And if you haven't already done so, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss another episode. If you want to connect with me, you can do that on most social media platforms. Just search for @Mr. John Clayton. The best place to connect with me online, though, is on LinkedIn. You can find a link to my profile in the show notes. Remember, running your architecture business doesn't have to be hard, and you don't need to do it alone. This is Architecture Business Club.